Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Cato and I'm so glad you're joining me again today. Today's card was super quick to make, even though it doesn't look like it, because it didn't feature any coloring. I just did all of that with ink blending. Now to start out, I am going to stamp this really large stamp by the Gray Muse onto a large piece of cardstock. I want to make a mini slimline card out of this, and I want it to fit on the die, so that's why I am putting that underneath my stamp to line everything up and make sure I can die cut this panel the way I want it and the florals fit on it nicely. The cardstock I am stamping on today is Clairefontaine DCP 250 GSM cardstock, and that's a really great cardstock for ink blending, and it's really cheap. It's easy to find in Europe, but I think for the US folks, this might be a little bit harder to get. And the reason I am stamping this onto such a large piece of cardstock is because if I had die cut my cardstock beforehand, I would have had this stamp hanging off of 3 edges of it, and that's really hard to stamp in the Misti. You want to at least have 2 edges where the stamp doesn't overhang. Now I stamped that in Versafine Onyx Black ink, and I'm embossing that with Wow Clear Gloss Superfine Embossing Powder. I highly recommend you emboss for this technique, though I am also doing it because I like the look of it. But the embossing will resist the ink blending you do on top of it. And while most inks, like the Versafine Onyx Black, will stand up to ink blending just fine on their own, you have to let them dry a really long time before they aren't smudging everywhere anymore. So I prefer to emboss them. And this way, none of the line art will get muted. Now, this is dye ink, so it wouldn't mute the Versafine Onyx Black too much, but still enough for me to notice. That's why I'm embossing. Now, I'm using some Pinkfresh Studio dye inks. I will list all the colors I used in the description below. I always list all my supplies because during the voiceover I usually forget what supplies are called, like this gorgeous stamp set. I have no idea what it's called, I just know it's by the Gray Muse, so you can find the name of that as well below. I am using super bright colors for this and really small blending brushes as well. These are not the greatest. These are really cheap makeup brushes that I got off of Amazon, but they are the only small brushes that I have. Now, these didn't blend really great because the bristles are a bit too loose. So the color went a bit everywhere. But I know Altenew has really tiny blending brushes, and I think the rabbit hole designs might too. I'm not sure. I'll look up some alternatives to use, so I will put them in the description below as well. Now I also wanted to add a little bit of depth to my flowers, and I did that with most of them already, but I wanted to intensify the contrast, so I'm going in with darker inks to blend in the middle of all of the flowers and add some shading. You can also do this with colored pencils if you want to be more precise. I've done that in the past and it works great on top of the ink, and it will give a really nice color as well. Now all that's left to do is stamp my sentiment, and I am doing that with an acrylic block instead of my Misti, so I'm going pretty slow to make sure it's stamped right, and I'm stamping that in the same ink and embossing that as well. Now to put this card together, I am layering 4 thick pieces of thick white cardstock behind my panel, and I will prop that up onto a card base. This added dimension will just add a little bit extra to my card without taking up too much time. And I'm adhering everything down with the Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. Just centering that onto my mini slimline card, and then I can add some embellishments. And these embellishments are super fun. It took me a little bit to get the placement right, but I'm happy with the end result anyway. These butterfly gems are from Crafty Meraki, and they are so gorgeous. They are the highest quality gems that I have ever seen in the card making industry. I don't have that many gems, but still, so they are gorgeous. They come in gorgeous colors. They are not just the pink butterflies that I show you here. They shift colors, so the pink ones also turn purple and blue, and the green ones also turn blue. They are a really gorgeous shade of teal if you shift them in the light, and there are rainbow ones as well. I also added some iridescent bubbles by little things from Lucy's cards, and then I can fold my envelope. And I used a calculator for this to determine how I have to make this mini slimline envelope, because the instructions on the envelope punch board just don't work out for me for mini slimline cards. So I just calculated with one of those tools that are everywhere on the internet, but I always use the same one, and it works for metric and imperial, so that's a really great feature, and I will link that below as well. And I made it bright yellow because that's one of my favorite colors, and I always love some yellow with my rainbow. And I think the card design is pretty rainbow. Now, as always, I am keeping my envelope super simple. I am just using that same stamp, and I will stamp that on the back of the envelope and the front flap as well. And that will be a nice continuous design. And I'm stamping that in orange ink by Pinkfresh Studio. Orange is not the name of it. I think it's called Clementine. I'm not entirely sure. I will list it in the description below. And this is where the Misti is so handy, not just because you can stamp things twice, but because it's pretty much impossible to stamp a large stamp like that with an acrylic block. Now, this is the final project. I really love how the florals turned out, and those tiny butterflies are a really fun touch, I think. A super quick card to make, and really fun to do as well, really relaxing. And this is one of those coloring methods that doesn't require too much thinking, so it's great for a Sunday. I hope you like it too. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up on this card and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to read them. I'd also love it if you subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of my videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.